Hi there. There's talk in Europe about a Northern European currency and a Southern European currency, and who wants to be in what and all that stuff. I think it's a nonsense discussion. It doesn't really address any real problem. It's a reaction to a situation created by the banking system, by corporate and criminal influences from Wall Street, the uncertainty they've created, and of course by a very important negative thing in our world, which is our carbon dependence, our fossil fuel dependence. So I've been thinking about a solution, and my solution, well, I thought I'd just talk about it for a little bit. And it's a three currency system. It's not about having a drachma or a Swiss franc or whatever. Of course, that's important for the governments of those countries, so that they can print money and do whatever they want and run into debt, and that's all fine, because there's, as long as they have relationships with fossil fuel producing countries, or military powers that can control the flow of fossil fuels, they're fine, and they can do that. But that's not let's say a smart solution to the problems we have. What I'm saying is could be applied to every country. Every country could do it, and then changes would start taking place, real changes in society. What I'm proposing is to have three currencies. I thought about two currencies. Basically, it is about productiveness and rewarding productiveness with money. There's three types of productiveness I'm now distinguishing, which is, first, it's labor by people, skilled labor by people. Second is labor or work by machines powered with fossil fuels. That's gas, coal, oil, gasoline, but also nuclear. I would say that's dangerous fuels. They are all fuels that are ultimately lethal to humanity or detrimental to our health, unsustainable, marginal. So first is manual labor, human labor. Second is let's say carbon labor or fossil fuel labor. And the third is renewable labor. So that is machines running on renewables. Wind energy, wave energy, geothermal energy, all that stuff. And any clean, safe energy source that could be imagined. So maybe fusion energy eventually. I don't think thorium is safe. Thorium is not safe. But anyway, so you have three currencies that are printed or created and loaned out to people on demand, of course, because they go to the bank and they say, lend me this money. That's even just stepping over a whole discussion about fractional banking and what banks do is good or bad. But you have three currencies, and that gives people a lot of choice all of a sudden. And that does one most important thing, the first most important thing, or let's say this is a thought process in progress. It does two important things. First important thing is it stops people competing with machines. So a producer now has a choice to either pay a worker to do the job, or to pay a machine to do to pay for gasoline or energy for the machine to do the job. And it has until now always been trying to make a much more efficient machine all the time. But that kind of, apart from very delicate pick and place and fruit picking, all that stuff, where you need very dexterous robots to do the work, that kind of has been exhausted. This whole avenue of mechanical production. Plus, it's very expensive because you need a lot of steel and stuff like that. So, if a worker does exactly the same job, he's going to not. The producer is not going to like to pay that worker more than he pays for the fuel for the machine, and that's of course untenable competition. We think we're competing against the Chinese worker, but we're not. We're competing against machines. And why are we competing against machines? Because the producer has a currency with which he can both pay a machine to do the work or a worker to do the work. If you split your currency in three, where you have one for labor, one for fossil fuel energy, and one for renewable energy, you can, when you buy a product, you have to use all three currencies, which is a little bit complicated, but you get used to it. And of course you can, let's say, that can all be automate and all that stuff. You immediately see how many people are involved in that, how many gasoline and energy, fossil fuel energy is involved in it, and how much renewables, and you can make a choice. And of course, you know, labor can provide everything we need. We are talking about organic farming with manual labor in the farm. That's using solar energy and the soil and the water and the wind and whatever, and some work, 2 days of work per person on average per week to maintain such a garden and sustain yourself. I'm not saying that we should do that all the time, but there are regions in the world that are now underutilizing the manual labor available to sustain themselves, because they have to compete with fossil fuel produced fertilizer, fossil fuel logistics, fossil fuel GM crops that are transported around the world, that would be uneconomically by far if it had to be done, or it only had been paid for with labor. Let's say if there's no subsidies from banks to basically push out the labor out of the whole economy. Just to illustrate that, recently banks did a massive global liquidity injection. At least they announced they would do that in a kind of a spirit of camaraderie, but of course also in the spirit of the New World Order. They would be injecting fiat currency around the world. So that would be dollars and euros, amongst others. What's the effect of that, doing that? Well, you're giving liquidity to the producers. Primarily, that's the most important thing you do. Of course, not if you give liquidity to the consumers, it ends up with the producers. That's where your liquidity ends up. So that's important. The producer then has a choice to now, in this let's say time of scarcity and need and economical mayhem, to spend that money on a machine doing the work or a person doing the work. Of course, you're gonna prefer to spend the money on a machine doing the work, so you're gonna spend it on fossil fuels, pollute a little bit more, and push people out of their jobs. The economic stimulus, so if you want to think about it, the economic stimulus is expressly putting people out of work, because the currency that the economic stimulus is given in only pays or allows the producers to make a choice between a person and a machine. Am I going to pay for the person that is, let's say, has all kinds of other needs and mayhem or work, or am I going to buy some fossil fuels to power the machine? Easy. So economic stimulus is actually an assault on the workers. It's putting them out of a job. It's making them obsolete, which they are. That's the whole point. Machines can make everything. But you have to make a choice. You have to, as a society, you have to be given the choice. And if you have a choice of a mechanized society, you should go for the robo-economy that I've been talking about, which is a society where things are made by machines, but the machines run on renewable power and not on fossil fuel power, which eventually kills humanity. So, but that's anyway. Just to come back to my principal, let's say, proposition here is that you have three currencies. One pays for labor, one pays for fossil fuels, one pays for renewables, and with that you pay everything. That allows you to push out fossil fuel from the manufacturing process, because you simply prefer products that are offered for the renewable currency. It also allows you, if you have a renewable energy source, to get renewable energy credits that the producer can use, so you can pay with your own renewable energy. So you once again, as a homeowner, become a productive part of society. And of course you can work as much as you like. Southern European countries, let's say for instance southern Italy is a very poor region relatively in Europe, so they have lots of labor there, and they have lots of renewable energy resources there, because there's lots of solar energy in that zone. With those two factors they could do exactly the same thing as a Northern European country like Germany. which is manufacture, of course, using the renewable energy, and make society work with the labor. But because they are in a eurozone and they have to compete against machines that are powered with fossil fuels in industrial zones in Northern Europe and everywhere else, it's not working for them. Anyway, I'll quit this video because I need a cup of coffee. But that's my proposal. Don't split the euro currency in two zones, Northern Euro and Southern Euro, but split it in three, so that you have political power in the hands of the people to choose whether they want to buy products which create jobs, which is labor-intensive, currency intensive product, or which have renewable support. Because if you buy a product that is made with wind power and you have to use renewable energy currency to pay for it, you'll be paying for that wind power, and the wind power gets more currency and doesn't have to compete with the fossil fuels either. And you can make, of course, well, you can make your choice if you want to have fossil fuels in your product, so you buy a lot of plastic, which is 100% fossil fuel, then so be it. But you will know, you will see that the currency availability of fossil fuel will fluctuate and be unreliable, while the other two currencies availability will be increasing or the same, because people don't suddenly disappear, so the labor and they all want to work, so labor will increase and renewables will increase in availability, and things will be cheaper if you buy them in renewables gradually as they come online, because the nice aspect of renewable energy is that once it's paid off, it's basically costless. So you have a costless society. Plus you have a society, last thing I'll say is that if you use fossil fuel currency, if you specifically could do that and say, well, I pay for this product and it has a fossil fuel component, and for that component I pay with my fossil fuel credits, you know that you're also paying an overhead of military dominance of the fossil fuel resource, and that would also, you would also have the ability to undermine that or influence that. So people say vote with your wallet, and of course you shouldn't buy Coca-Cola, you shouldn't buy all kinds of other crap, but if you want to have, let's say, an improvement in the economical system in Europe, it would be very smart to introduce currencies that allow people to simply choose between labor, fossil fuel energy and renewable energy. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.